Might be hard to hear it, but the movie did miss a couple things. First things first, we have to talk about the actual character T'Challa, right? Black Panther himself. Now, there are some things that are just drastically missing about his personality. Him having like a duality. So he could be this ferocious, not just angry, but regal leader. And he can also be quite sensitive. He can also put Wakanda first, and he can also understand when he can learn from other people. And he is a genius. Now there are things in the comics which he does, like he created the Quinjet. He actually created like the second version, like the most effective, well-known version of Falcon's wings. He even stepped in for Daredevil once when he couldn't be in the role, right? And these are obviously things that we might not ever see in terms of certain actions, because obviously he came after a certain time for the Avengers, but it would have been cool to kind of see that in the universe, but whatever. Specifically speaking about the movie though, he is a genius. You don't see that in the movie. That's actually stripped away from him and given entirely to Shuri, who is also smart in the actual comic, but it isn't only her. Like, he is actually a scientist. He's someone who Reed Richards respects intellectually. It's why he's also part of the Illuminati, the greatest minds and decision makers. This is why he's there. You don't get that from him in that Black Panther movie. He is, mind you, he's been training and being raised to take the Black Panther mantle. You got that more in the Civil War movie than you did in the Black Panther movie. He actually took a step back, personality-wise, which they wanted to make an origin movie, but you didn't have to do that. You could have still had who he was in Civil War, which was ferocious. He was quite scary, and he knew, like, you killed my father. I have to handle this the way that I know to handle it, even if it's wrong in terms of foreign policy. And he seemed very capable, and even understanding, like, there are worse things than death, which is what he was doing with Baron Zemo. But then in this one, he was like unsure of himself, and he was almost a different person completely. And it didn't make much sense to me, because what I know of the character, which is there is confidence, there's insecurity, but not necessarily to that point. Not like, oh, can I be? Because he's raised, he knows what his purpose is supposed to be. Besides that, we also have the Wakandan people. The Wakandan people are also very different than what they showed here, and it ties into a lot of stuff, a lot of the other characters as well. So the past Black Panthers, we'll start with Azari, right? Grandfather, was definitely super xenophobic and isolationist in their mentality. And he fought Steve Rogers when he first came over there. They were like putting like Europeans' heads on spikes and all that, and that's where they were at. He met Steve Rogers and started to soften his view, and that started the chain reaction into what led to T'Challa understanding, and even T'Chaka telling him like it's good that we've had like what we've had here in Wakanda, but we got to be able to learn more about other things. Like, our perspective isn't the only ones that matter. Like, we can make things better here by learning from other people, which is why T'Challa went around and like on his little pilgrimage around the world and understanding like how other people think, and even bringing things back that could benefit the world. Because when you are isolationist, you think that your ideas are the only ones that matter, and that's just not true. So there was some evolution even when it came, because Black Panther is a great title that's passed down from each member of that family, but it's the man underneath the mask that matters a lot, in just their ideals and thinking, which this is what makes T'Challa such a great character, which is why I actually say in another video he has to come back so you can be able to see this type of growth. Also, when I said about this whole ferocious thing, he is a person who is willing to sacrifice an entire universe. Another universe has happened, and I'm forgetting the name of the story. Not Convergence, because Convergence is DC, but pretty much when the universes were colliding, and they were telling like Steve Rogers, we're gonna have to destroy this other universe before it destroys ours. He didn't like it. They literally had to erase his memory that they were gonna do it, and Black Panther, pressed the button to blow up the other universe before it came into ours, because obviously he has to protect Wakanda. Wakanda is first, and even the way he is in some of his relationships. I mean, when it comes to his duty to Wakanda, has sullied some of his relationships, like romantically, like with famously Storm. But whatever. Sorry if I'm going back and forth. There's just some things that I forgot before. But going back to like the Wakandans, right? So we have that lineage that changes, but also Wakandans overall just want to be left to themselves. That's really what it is, because they know their technology and know people would want to take it. Understood. Now, this leads me to the next big thing, Killmonger. Killmonger is not African American. He's not born in America. In the comic, he is Wakandan. His parents were forced to pretty much fight against T'Chaka, which got his father killed. It is forced by Claw, by the way. And then they get exiled. So T'Chaka kills his father, and then he gets exiled, right? Not to Compton, but to Harlem. I don't know why they like changing stuff like that. I guess because Cougar's from Compton, so they changed it to that, whatever. So they do that, and then he pretty much grows up with all this resentment. T'Challa tries to make it right, invites him, like contacts him, invites him back to Wakanda, names his village after him, his old family's village after him, and things like, you know what, my father messed up. You were only a child. It didn't make any sense to exile you for what happened. You know, things were wrong here. So I'm gonna try and make it up to you. Now, Killmonger uses the growing xenophobia that's happening within Wakanda to stir up a coup, because he didn't just come in there and just try to kill everyone. He went, okay, these people don't understand why T'Challa keeps leaving, because T'Challa was going out with the Avengers and he was leaving the country, and they didn't like that. They were like, you need to just stay here. So he used that against them to eventually stage a coup. It wasn't just like he told something to another character about a secret about, you know, one of their relatives that got killed, and that just split the whole country up. No, he used real political ideology. Like literally, it was make Wakanda great again. Like, we don't need anyone. Like, where's all this other outworldly influence coming in? We don't need that. That was literally what was happening there. But I guess in the film, they didn't want to put that because they felt that'd be problematic to show Wakanda's having that. And it's not. Not everyone thinks the same. And it would have kept it isolated within the politics there, and didn't need, like, Killmonger didn't need to be like an African-American revolutionary. He didn't need to, because that's not what the character was. Not only did that happen, but Killmonger was also like he was an anti-hero. Like, he was a bad guy. He didn't care about any of that. He was also a genius. He also reverse engineered the herb. He didn't just burn it. Like, he actually made a different version of it and gave it to Casper Cole, who then becomes White Tiger and all that, which we'll get into that in a different video. But he does such cool things, like even reviving certain people to come back. I believe he did that to Nakia, because Nakia also becomes a villain later on, because she is actually someone who was promised to be T'Challa's wife. That's what the Dora Milaje are, by the way. They're like wives in training as well as bodyguards. And they got disbanded and then brought back later. But she pretty much went crazy when she saw T'Challa out there, like, you know, messing with a whole bunch of other girls instead of her. And I believe she does get like resurrected as something else, completely a different villain, which they could technically still do in the movie that they wanted to, but I don't know if they're gonna do that. But that'd be interesting, right? Besides that, I would say, if you really want to know what the character's about, read Christopher Priest and Reginald Hudlin's versions of their runs were excellent. They set the pace for what he's supposed to be and everything that was happening with them. So, I almost forgot Shuri. Shuri is not just a tech whiz. She's ferocious. She's also someone, I notice I use that word a lot, but regardless, she's also someone who's a warrior. Like, she was ready to stand in and fight the uncle who temporarily had the mantle of Black Panther before T'Challa came back from his pilgrimage, and she was gonna fight him. And she's also fought Killmonger before. As a matter of fact, this is going back and forth between Killmonger. Killmonger's someone who doesn't even need the herb to beat T'Challa. He can't take the herb because he's not of royal blood, and I guess that's why they made him his cousin in the movie, which is not a thing. He's not his cousin. It's not a thing. That's just something that they made there. And this is one of those weird things where Marvel and a lot of other places want to make a relatable villain instead of just making him a villain, and it's keeping it isolated within what's happening in Wakanda. It didn't have to mirror real life social situations. It didn't have to. It could have just mirrored what's happening there. And I know people were sensitive about the whole Dora Milaje wife in training thing, but that's also a thing that happens in certain cultures in Africa too. So you can't, take that away just because it makes you feel uncomfortable, right? You know what I mean? So I feel there's a lot of nuance I was missing from this character, but I get it. I'm not saying you shouldn't like the movie. It's not one of my favorites because I am source material heavy. I know what was missing from the character and some of the nuance, so that's just my opinion. I like that it brought people to the character, and I'm okay with that. And Chadwick Boseman still did what they told him to do. I believed it. I believe what was happening there. You understand? I definitely do. But yeah, that's really my take on it, and really what I wish was in there. I'm saying this now because they're coming out with this whole world of Wakanda, and it's like if they don't understand the world of Wakanda, it worries me about what they're about to do. I think it's cool they're doing that too. So it's like if they don't understand it, how's this gonna happen? And if they're not gonna recast T'Challa, who is key to all of these stories, he's in the center of all these stories, how is this gonna work? I don't understand how it's gonna work. But you let me know. Let me know if you agree, if you're like, yo, Black Panther's the best film ever, or if you're like, there's some things missing or whatever in between. Let me know. Let's talk about it in the comments. And yes, don't forget to enter the nerd. Like and subscribe, please.